I don't want no oil, a spoil in my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things, a creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes! Good morning, Toledo, and good afternoon, Columbus, and hello to those of you listening on the internet, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Joe DeMar, and you are listening to For a Green Future. For a Green Future is a program where we talk about ecology and the environment, and we talk about it in a positive and an upbeat way, because the green future is coming, and that future is more comfortable, it's cleaner, you're going to be healthier, you're going to have more money. It's better than the present that we've got right now. And I just want to impart that little bit every week. And so we have a pretty good show for you today. Actually, we have a great show because, as I like to say every week, this is the best show in Ohio, but it gets better every time you call. And this week, you are the guest that I'm going to be asking you to call in at 866-240-1065. That's 866-240-1065. And let's talk, because I've had a lot of guests on this show. I've had people from, lots of people from Ohio. I've had people from here in Toledo. We had Marky Miller on a number of times, one of the women responsible for the Lake Erie Bill of Rights. We've had people call in from California, from Oregon, from Columbus. I'd like to talk to just some local people here today. I'd like to talk to you. And I think you'll like the topic of the show. The main topic is, how does your garden grow? We're looking at gardening, and because gardening for a lot of us is the way that we connect directly with nature. You get out there in your garden, get your hands dirty, pull up some weeds, pick some tomatoes. For a lot of people, that is a very direct interaction with the earth. And so I'm going to ask you, would you please, because it looks like it might be a little too wet to actually get out in the garden today. So let's talk about the gardening. Let's do some planning. What are you growing in your garden this year? What kind of plants do you think do well around here? And do you have any tips for anyone else on gardening? Do you have any secrets that you've got? I've got a few that I'm going to share with you later, but be thinking about that. And you can call in at 866-240-1065. And we're going to open the phone lines up at about 1:15. So you have time to get your coffee together. You have time to get out of bed. And I like to dress up for you folks. I think Raven can vouch for me here. I like to put on a nice dress shirt, and I like to look good for you guys, even though this is radio, even though you can't see me. But you don't have to dress up. I don't care if you got a bathrobe or pajamas. It's all good. Just pick up the phone, give me a call at 866-240-1065. And do you love gardening? Do you like gardening? Why do you garden? Does it give you pleasure? And it actually has some amazing health benefits I'm going to talk about in a few minutes here. But so the main topic is gardening. And then we're going to have some updates on some things happening in Columbus and around the country. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some things that I've learned this week. And of course, we have our letter from the future coming up. My great-great-granddaughter, Marie I. Once again, very dependable, my great-great-granddaughter. I think it speaks well of the genes, the DeMar genes. She's written me a letter, and we'll be talking. I'll be reading that to you in a bit in the second half of the show. So, got up this morning at, I usually get up at 5 o'clock or so when getting ready to do the show, and woke up to thunder and lightning. And my phone predicts that it's going to be thunderstorms. I have an iPhone, and their weather app says it's going to be thunderstorms for the next 5 days straight. And I don't know if you get down to Wood County where I live or out in the region, but a lot of farmers' fields have not gotten planted. They have been unable to get in there. No corn in the ground, no wheat. And this is shaping up to be a really terrible year for farming in the United States of America. And farmers are kind of taking a 1-2 punch because they can't get into the fields to plant their crops. And because of the trade wars with China, those crops, the prices for those crops have just crashed down through the bottom because China was one of our biggest customers. They bought all our soybeans. And so if you can't sell your soybeans to your biggest customer, where are you going to sell them? How are you going to get a good price for them? So it's not a good situation for the farmers. And our food system on this globe has become so interconnected but so global, it's kind of ridiculous that we would be buying produce from half a planet away, that they'd be sending us things grown in, they're trying to sell us garlic grown in China. And, I'm the political director of the Ohio Green Party. Although on this show, I don't speak for the Green Party. I speak only for myself. And that's the same with all my guests and all of you. We're all just speaking for ourselves here because this is talk radio. And that's the cool thing. You get to talk for yourself and you get to have thousands of people listen to you. And it's absolutely free. Just give a call in. All we ask is that you do call at 866-240-1065. But one of the things that the Green Party believes in is locally based economics. And so we feel that if you can grow garlic in your area, you should not be importing garlic from half a world away, because not only is there a cost in that in terms of putting more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere because you've got to run the boats to ship the things over, but it also can bring pests. That's one hidden cost of this global economy that we've got, is that things ride in on the pallets. Things come in, pests come in with these plants from other countries and other continents. And those pests can cause billions and billions of dollars worth of damage. The most recent one that is, I'm sure, in the memory of everyone who's listening, it was the emerald ash borer. We used to have something called ash trees around here. Ash trees were, it was a tall, pretty straight tree that had nice long leaves, nice pointed leaves. Didn't produce any fruit or anything like that, but it was an attractive tree, and it's an important part of the ecosystem around here. There aren't any more ash trees because somebody shipped something into Michigan, and in the pallet that this product came in on, there were some emerald ash borers, and they got out and they started reproducing. And the official government response was incredibly inadequate. I mean, if you have any inkling of ecology, any understanding of how organisms interact with their environment, they spent millions on this completely useless program, which was don't transport firewood across state lines or across county lines. And that was it. They just said, oh, don't move firewood. That'll help the emerald ash borers. Well, emerald ash borers have wings. They can fly. And so every year they just watched as they got out of the one county where they started up up in the middle of Michigan, roughly. And they would expand, 50, 60 miles. And they kept doing that because that's how far they could fly in that year. And they just watched them. But, well, they kept scolding all of us. They kept saying, oh, the emerald ash borers are getting up farther. Stop moving the firewood. When moving the firewood was never the problem. So to make a long story short, I'm kind of wandering off topic here, but the point is that if you can grow it yourself, if you can go literally out in your backyard, put some seeds in the ground and get some plants out, from an ecological perspective, that is far, far superior to going into a grocery market, going into a grocery store and going to the produce section and buying something that was grown 10,000 miles away. And so not only are you helping yourself to some delicious produce from your own garden, you're also helping the environment because you're not contributing to this global market, which it's, some might say that's an oversimplification. Some might say we have to grow stuff to go all over the world. That's just the way the world works and the economy works. If you're one of those people, if you're a farmer who's sitting at your kitchen right now, looking out at your fields that you can't plant and thinking about the fact that you can't sell to China, give me a call. Call in 866-240-1065, 866-240-1065. Let's talk about the benefits and the problems with having a global agricultural economy. And and you have a sympathetic ear here. I think about what the farmers are going through every time I drive out of Bowling Green. And gardens can't replace farms. Gardens are great. We can supplement our own meals with what we're gardening. We can grow a lot of our own produce, but we're still going to need farms. We can't all have nice big gardens. A lot of us have apartments, and yeah, you can grow some stuff in pots in your apartment. That's cool. And if you do that, let us know, 866-240-1065. We do have to have farmers, and we have to make the economy workable for farmers, but we don't want to do that at the expense of the global ecosystem. We cannot afford to do that in ways that destroy the ecology that supports all of us, including the farmers. So what are your thoughts? Give me a call, 866-240-1065. So this year we're going to be growing, we've got a garden in. Our lives have been kind of crazy for the past couple of years. And so our garden has sort of laid fallow there. We garden in kind of an unusual way. What we do is we dig out strips in the lawn that are just wide enough for the plants. And I do this because I'm lazy. What this allows me to do is to take my lawnmower right up to the edge of my garden. And so I don't have a big area that's been cleared. I just have this narrow strip that's been cleared, and then it fills in, it covers with the plants that I've put in the ground. And I think it's a good system for me. I mean, it's not as productive as what they call the raised bed garden, where you actually mound the dirt up so that you have a long strip, but you've got it mounded up, so you've created more surface area. So you can harvest a lot of crops out of a raised bed. So my system is just flat. It's kind of a lazy, it's kind of a don't get out of bed garden. But it works for me, and we've got zucchini in, we've got tomatoes, we've got radishes, we've got carrots, and some herbs. And I think we're going to stop there this year, but at least we got one in, and at least we're going on it. So how about you? What are you planning to plant? Have you already planted? What would you recommend to other people not to plant? Have you had some plants that you've put in that have just been disastrous, and you would say, nobody in this region should try to grow that? We have a lot of challenges in our gardens, of course, and we can give the gardens the tender, loving care that if a farmer can't give every single plant in his field the kind of attention we can give to our gardens. And so what we're wondering is, things like the weather for us, it's kind of an inconvenience if it's not what they predicted, but for a farmer, it can be disastrous if the weather is not what they predicted. And the predictions have been getting, they say that the predictions have been getting better and better. But, I noticed that on the grand scale, some of these predictions have been inaccurate. Specifically in terms of the global warming, because their predictions for global warming effects have been steadily and consistently underestimating the effects of global warming. I remember we've been talking about global warming for more than 20 years. And I remember the predictions 20 years ago, it could get as bad as this. It could go up by so many degrees into the next 20 years. And we have blown way past all those predictions. And the reason that we've done it is because I've said before on this show that I believe we're caught in a positive feedback loop, that the effects of global warming themselves cause more global warming. And just like the feedback on a microphone, this effect of warming is accelerating at a super high rate and will soon reach its maximum. That is, the global warm up as fast as it can, unless we stop the input, unless we stop putting carbon in the air. And so that's something I'm going to talk a little bit more about later in the show. But we have reached 8:15, and so the phone lines are now open. Call in at 866-240-1065. How does your garden grow, and what does your garden grow? Give us a call. So some interesting things that I've learned about gardening. There's health benefits to gardening, and not just the benefit of having fresh food and something good to eat. Turns out gardening, when you go outside, you get vitamin D because you get out in the sun, which is great. And actually, it doesn't seem like it, but working a garden, like if you're weeding and hoeing and doing that sort of stuff, it counts as aerobic exercise. So if you're not somebody who wants to get out and start jogging, if you don't want to invest in new running shoes like I did last week, you can get out in the garden and you can go out and pick some plants and do some hoeing, do some raking, carry stuff around, fill up the wheelbarrow, dump it out. Turns out that's aerobic exercise. So that's one good thing about gardening. Another really cool thing about gardening is gardening lowers your chance of developing dementia. Not exactly sure how this works, but if you get out in the garden and garden regularly, you have a 36% chance of, or 36% lower chance of developing dementia as you get older. And that's quite an improvement on the odds there, 36%. That's definitely worth doing. So if for no other reason, even if you don't like fresh produce, even if you grow it and just put it out on the curb for people to pick up, you could get out there and do some gardening just in order to help keep your brain functioning. Let's see. So what kind of benefits do you feel you get from your garden? Is your garden just a flower pot in the window? Do you have a big yard? Do you put in a big garden? I know there's somebody there in Maumee who has a really big garden. I see corn every year. It's probably 500 square garden. It's huge, and they probably grow a substantial amount of their produce. You can get a lot of food out of a garden. That's one reason I love zucchini so much. If those plants you can just have fresh zucchini all summer long. It's amazing. So now let's see. We are waiting for your call, and we'll be happy to take it. But in the meantime, I think I need to talk a little bit about something that happened to me this past week. One reason I don't have a guest this week is it was kind of a crazy week. As all of you know, I've been working on this HB 6, this House Bill 6, this crazy bill which would bail out the Davis, Bessie, and Perry nuclear power plants. And I got a call from Rachel Bells at Ohio Citizen Action, and she asked me, we need to have some people out in front of the State House doing some protesting at 8 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, because they might be voting on this bill that day in order to vote it out of committee. And she called me on Tuesday to say this. So I was like, what? Oh, okay, I'll try. And so made some calls, talked to some great people over at Sierra Club and so forth, and managed to get more than a dozen people out there in front of the State House on Wednesday morning with flags and with a bullhorn, and we were out there saying, no HB6, no HB6. And then we went into the hearings. And I had not intended to speak at the hearings. I hadn't even intended to be in Columbus that day, but someone asked me to step up, and I stepped up. And you can hear my testimony. I'll put a link to it on our Facebook page and on our website. But essentially, I was able to tell the legislators there in the committee what the fundamental problem with nuclear power is, and how basically it's the generation of the 200 radioactive isotopes that nuclear power creates, the 200 isotopes that can get into our bodies and cause cancers and genetic defects and other sorts of diseases. And it was very fulfilling in one way to be able to lay out directly for the legislators exactly what they're doing if they go ahead with this plan, how they're going to make the whole planet less habitable by creating these intensely toxic radioactive isotopes. But it was a little frustrating because what they then turned around and did, and this is one of those situations where you got to wonder, what are they possibly thinking? Because I was not the only person speaking out against HB6. In fact, the vast majority of witnesses were opposed to HB6, and we all cited studies, we all had statistics, we all showed, this is going to actually cost Ohioans billions of dollars. They've reduced the amount that they're going to add on to that they plan to add on to everyone's electric bill. They went from $250 to $150, but they also are allowing the utilities to add charges on to pay for renewable energy contracts that they'd already made under the old system. And so the companies are on the hook to buy wind and solar from these companies that have wind plants and solar plants. And so they said to the legislators, if you eliminate the need for wind and solar, we're going to be stuck with these contracts. And so the legislator said, oh, okay, well, you can add that to the bill. And so a lot of people's bills are actually going to go up like $5 a month. But the thing is, they won't be getting the renewable energy anymore. They'll just be getting the charges for it. So they'll be getting charged for renewable energy that is no longer being created or is no longer being purchased. That's just one of the crazy changes they made. Essentially, what the Republicans in the committee did was they stripped out every single pro-environmental aspect of the bill. It's called a clean air legislation, but they eliminated everything that would have benefited clean air. And in fact, they added to this pot of money that they're going to create with this charge on all our bills. They added 2 coal-fired power plants that can now access this money, and they wrote wind and solar out, so wind and solar can no longer access the money. And they specifically defined nuclear power as clean energy. They said nuclear power is clean. So nuclear power is clean. Wind and solar apparently aren't, and coal is clean. So it's kind of like they were like, Well, and the way that the chair of the committee, the Republican chair of the committee, Representative Vitale, said, he said, well, the environmental groups wouldn't play. And so I'm not sure exactly what that means. They wouldn't play. We wouldn't play along with what they were planning to do. We wouldn't pretend nuclear power was wonderful enough. Yeah, and nuclear power is in by no means clean energy. Nuclear power probably is the dirtiest sort of energy ever produced by mankind. Well, actually, it is the dirtiest because the wastes from it will be around for 250,000 years, and nothing else is that bad. But because the environmental organizations, and this is after the vast majority of the environmental organizations got up there and said, we don't have a problem with keeping Davis-Besse running. You can keep Davis-Besse running. Just give us our efficiency standards and just remove the setback law, which has banned wind turbines and wind farm development in the U.S. or in Ohio. Just give us these things and we won't fight you on that thing. So basically they capitulated because nuclear power is one of the things that started the environmental movements. One of the in the mid 70s when we had the 3 Mile Island partial meltdown, and when we had people first learning about ecology and people first realizing just how interconnected we literally are, and that atoms from our bodies are constantly going into the environment, and atoms from the environment are constantly coming into our bodies, and that we are sort of a mix of the atoms that are all around us, and that nuclear power produces these radioactive atoms, which in the testimony in front of the subcommittee or in front of the committee, I called them suicide bombers, because a radioactive atom chemically looks exactly like a normal atom, and so your body treats it exactly like a normal atom. But at some point, the radioactive atom will explode. And in that explosion, that's when they damage your DNA. That's when they kill your cells. And that's what causes the cancers and the mutations and the other health effects. So when a lot of these ecological environmental organizations got started, it was partly on the sort of wave of understanding when people came to realize this back in the mid 70s. And so for them now in the 20 teens to be saying, oh, you can have nuclear power. Okay, well, and of course the excuse is because the global warming situation is so bad, we're going to have to sacrifice our principles, we're going to have to sacrifice our morals in order to keep nuclear running because that puts out very little carbon dioxide. Well, the thing is, so even though most of the big environmental groups did that, that wasn't enough for the Republicans. It wasn't enough for Vitale. So they just doubled down. They did the Trump thing. They actually added a new requirement. So wind farms have been banned in Ohio since 2014 because they have a setback law which makes them uneconomical. You can't really build a wind farm in Ohio because you have to have too much property. But they've added another legislative obstacle to wind farms, and that is that they have said that now if you want to put in a wind farm, you have to have a local referendum. You have to give the people in each township where you're going to put a wind turbine, you have to go and have a public vote and ask them, are you willing to have a wind farm in your community? And the thing is about that is that no wind farm developer is going to invest the millions of dollars and the years that it takes to go through the siting board process. And the siting board is this group of bureaucrats that basically look at all applications for any sort of power generation, and they have to look at it in terms of its environmental impact, its community impact, its historical impact, and it takes years to go through this process, on average 1.5 to 2 years, and it costs millions of dollars because you have to hire outside experts to prepare all these reports. You can't just prepare them yourself because you might be biased in favor of your own project. So, plus, of course, wind power, that they have to get all the lease agreements with the landowners, and they have to make agreements with the neighbors because neighbors can complain, can cause problems. So typically, what happens is you've got a wind turbine going into a space. Even if you own the adjoining property, they'll often include you in the payments of the money that wind turbine generates. So just being near a wind turbine can increase your property's value and give you income. But now the Republican legislatures have said you've got to go through all that, and then you have to have an election. And not only do you have to have an election, well, you have to have an election in each township so most wind farms these days cover 2 to 3 townships because they're very large. The turbines are spaced very far apart. And so you'd have to have 3 elections, and you'd have to win every one of them, or else, after investing all that time and money and doing the studies and the predictions, then you'll be told in an election, which, elections can be swayed by lots and lots of money. So if your opponents dump tons of money into an election, they can convince people of the wrong things. They can convince people of things that are untrue. And so you could lose your election and lose all the money you've invested and not be able to put in your wind farm. So it's a clear signal that Ohio does not want clean energy. Well, I should say, it's a clear signal that the Republicans that control the state legislature do not want wind energy or solar energy in the state of Ohio. It's kind of amazing and those weren't the only things that they did, but those are some of the most egregious. So it's kind of intense, but now it's time to take a break and take a breather, because it's time to hear from our wonderful sponsors. And one of our sponsors that we're very proud to have is DeMar Consulting. DeMar Consulting is a computer consulting business. They will come to your home and they will fix whatever your computer problem is, or they'll tell you it can't be fixed and tell you need a new computer, because sometimes those viruses are so bad that not even experts can clean your computer completely. So DeMar Consulting is, they will come to your home. They'll help you with your home computing needs. Let's say your computer's not talking to your printer. They can make that happen. They can get them back together again. It's possible that you have a computer which is old and slow and you want to get a new one. They can advise you on what computer you need. By looking at what you do with your computer, they can advise you on the kind of computer you should get. And they won't steer you towards more computing power than you need. Everyone who works for DeMar Consulting has a degree in computer science, so you know that they know what they're talking about. And so you can give them a call. They are at 419-973-3000. That's 419-973-3000. Or you can find them on the web at demarconsulting.com. That's DEMARE, then the word consulting.com, demarconsulting.com. So that's one of our terrific sponsors. And the other terrific sponsor is the Wood County Park District. The Wood County Park District is a natural resources conservation agency. They protect natural spaces, maintain the quality of green spaces, and they provide engaging programming that teaches people to love and respect nature. They restore wildlife habitats, and they lead outdoor adventures. The Wood County Parks protects 20 parks and nature preserves all around Wood County, which are open from 8 a.m. to 30 minutes past sunset every day of the year. And for those of you listening in Columbus or on the internet, Wood County is the county directly south of Toledo. Toledo's in Lucas County, and Wood County is directly south. The seat of Wood County is Bowling Green, a very nice community that I happen to live in. One thing that's coming up with the Wood County Park District is they're going to have an open house and a ribbon cutting for the Carter Historic Farm Wetland Restoration Project. There's going to be the Heritage Farm Fest is Saturday, June 1st from 3 to 7 p.m. And as part of the Heritage Farm Fest, they're going to give tours of the Wetland Restoration Project at the Carter Historic Farm. So head on out there and get a taste of the way things used to be around here, because this land, this area of Toledo and Wood County, this all used to be wetlands. It all used to be swamp. It used to be called the Great Black Swamp. And they've restored just a little bit of it. And there's some very rare flowers. There's some very rare insects that live only in wetlands. And you might be able to catch a glimpse of them at the Carter Historic Farm Wetland Restoration Project. That's June 1st during the Heritage Farm Fest. And the Restoration Project tours will be 3 to 7 p.m. So if you want more information, you can go to their website at wcparks.org. And there you can also download the free app, the WC Parks app. You can also find them on Facebook at Wood County Park District and on Twitter at Wood Park Dist, and also on Instagram at Wood Park Dist. And if you'd like to volunteer at the Wood County Park District, you can check out the volunteer registration at wcparks.galaxydigital.com. And that's where you can go to be greener with the Wood County Park District. So, those are our wonderful sponsors, and we thank them very much for sponsoring this program and making it possible to bring the show to you every week. And one reason that I do this, that I have a commercial show as opposed to a nonprofit show, is that on a commercial show, I'm free to say whatever I want. On a nonprofit show, there's restrictions on things like I can't promote a specific political candidate if I don't, and I can't urge you to action. I can't ask you to do something on a nonprofit station, and it's kind of ridiculous that the restrictions they put on nonprofit programming. But here I can urge you to do something, and what I'd like to urge you to do right now, this week, is to call your state legislatures, both your state senator and your state house, and tell them, don't vote for House Bill 6. Vote against House Bill 6, because it is just setting a horrible precedent for Ohio's energy future. Another one of the things that they did in the original legislation, which they called the Clean Air legislation, they had funding for a pilot battery storage project. Right now down in Texas, which has some of the greatest wind in the country and the most wind turbines in the country, what they're doing is they have, in cooperation with Tesla, they've created these battery power stations where they charge these huge banks of batteries when the wind is high and when the sun is shining, and then they are able to discharge those batteries at night and when the wind stops. And so using these battery storage things and the development of battery technology over the past 5 years has been amazing. That the cost has dropped by about half. So if you include wind and solar and battery storage, now you have a power source which is no longer in any way intermittent. Now you have a power source which can just continuously put out a set amount of power, and it's kind of like a hybrid wind and solar farm. The way it works, kind of the same way a hybrid car works, where you put energy into the battery when you've got it, and then you can take it out when you need it. And so the original HB6 had funding for a pilot battery storage project in Ohio, and the revised HB6 eliminates it. So literally every positive environmental thing they had in the original version of the bill, they took out for the current situation of HB6. And then the Republicans proceeded to vote it out of the committee. The vote was 7-3. And so now what happens is the whole House decides on it. The whole House of Representatives has to vote on it. And the fact that that the Republicans did this, that they took what had been sort of a compromise bill with a few concessions for environmentalists here and there, like a little thing, like the battery storage thing, which is nice, which is a good demonstration project. The fact that they took all of that out and then redefined, just blatantly said, nuclear power is clean power, and then added coal plants. And one of those coal plants, I don't remember if I mentioned this, one of those coal plants is actually in Indiana. So the Ohio State Legislature is proposing to add charges to the electric bill of every Ohioan, regardless of whether they're in First Energy's territory or not. I'm in Bowling Green, and we have municipal power in Bowling Green, and they're still going to add money to my electric bill to bail out Davis-Besse. And they're also doing 2 coal plants, and one of those plants is in Indiana. So they're taking hard-earned Ohio dollars, the Ohio State Legislature is, and giving them to Indiana. And the reason they're doing this is because it will benefit First Energy. And if you have to pay an electric bill on First Energy or territory, like here in Toledo, you might be aware that this is not this wonderful, benign company. First Energy is a very, how should I put this? Ruthless. Yeah, it's a ruthless corporation. They are trying to get this money out of the legislature, and they're willing to do pretty much anything to get it. In fact, they have started an advertising campaign. They're spending over $4 million right now promoting this bill, HB6. And in the flyers for the HB6, they're showing wind turbines, they're showing solar panels, solar fields. They're saying, oh, if you want a clean energy future, call your legislators and tell them to support HB6. The thing is that HB6 cuts out wind and solar, and the only thing it benefits is nuclear and coal. And so it's just a straight up lie. And First Energy, this is also a threat to our democracy, because First Energy, in the Republican primaries, First Energy gave donations to Republican legislators in the primary. They picked 12 legislators, and they said, okay, you are the guys that we, First Energy, want running Ohio. And they gave them a ton of money, and those legislators won 11 out of the 12 races. So they bumped off incumbent Republicans in order to put these, I'm not sure I could even call them Republicans. They are essentially corporate. They're corporate promoters. I'm not sure I can really call them Republicans. They're promoting, in this legislation, they're promoting a very specific corporation. So, and then of course, First Energy also gave tons of money to Householder, the Speaker of the Ohio House. So First Energy went in, and they figured they had just by paying money, they put into place the people that they wanted. And it sure looks like they did it for the express purpose of getting this bailout passed, to getting this charge added to all our electric bills. And so that's a threat to democracy itself. I mean, even if you're not an environmentalist, even if you really, literally don't care about the environment, if you care about our country, you should care about the idea that a corporation can simply dump a ton of money and get into office the legislators that they want, as opposed to the ones that the people want. And so what I'm asking you to do is to call your legislators this week and tell them, don't vote for HB6. Vote against HB6. Let them know that you're watching, because the one thing that can make these people run, that can make them kind of back off from these radically anti-environmental position. I mean, you've all heard of the idea of a radical environmentalist. Well, right now we have radical anti-environmentalists in office. And the one thing that can make them back off is attention, is the idea that people are actually watching them do it. My own Representative Ganbari, he is the representative for Wood County, and at the hearings, he was vociferous in terms of promoting the nuclear power and opposing wind power. He made it very clear and when the vote came to take this out of committee and present it to the full legislature, Ghanbari was like, yes, he voted for it with an exclamation mark. But this past week, he went to talk to the Bowling Green Chamber of Commerce, and it was pointed out to him that by removing the energy and efficiency portfolio requirements, the alternative energy portfolio requirements, AEPS, he was going to cost the city of Bowling Green $400,000 every year, because Bowling Green has windmills, it has solar panels, and those are supplying clean energy to the people of Bowling Green and to the grid. And every year, because the current law supports wind and solar, the city of Bowling Green gets $400,000. And so Representative Ghanbari is proposing to eliminate those. And when that was brought up to him at this meeting, he was like, oh, well, I haven't decided how I'm going to vote on this yet, really. Whereas if you watch the hearings, which I did, and listen to him speak, there's no doubt on how he's going to vote. He is just all in on nuclear and all in on stopping wind. And so, but because attention was brought, because he had to stand up in front of people and try to defend this shameful thing that he's doing, he backed down. He said, oh, I might not do it. I haven't decided. And the more pressure we can keep on them, the more we let them know, yes, Ohio is watching. And Ohio, in poll after poll, the vast majority of Ohioans, even in polls taken in fracking country, even in polls where people support things like natural gas development, even in communities where people, where there are nuke plants, people want to see the country transition over to clean energy, to wind, to solar. In nuke plant counties, a lot of people want to see the nukes continue as long as possible also, but they also want wind and solar, and they want the clean energy. And so for the state legislature to not only deny that to them, but to actively prevent it from happening, to legislate against wind power and solar power in order to benefit coal power and nuclear power is a betrayal of democracy. So the cure for that is more democracy. The cure for that is to get people involved, to get people telling the legislators in no uncertain terms, we want our clean energy, and you should not stand in the way. Because that's the ironic thing, is that there's people willing to spend billions of dollars in the state of Ohio, and a lot of them came to the hearings, and it was pointed out, we're willing to invest billions of dollars into Ohio in order to put up wind turbines and to build solar fields. But they're not going to do it if they think everything that they're investing can simply be undone by the legislature, if they feel that there's a legislature that's hostile to wind and solar development. And the other thing is that is attached to other aspects. I mean, it's not just a question of energy policy. There are also corporations that are looking to change where they live, like Amazon is looking for new headquarters. A lot of the CEOs and a lot of the higher ups and the highest ups in those companies, when they make their decisions on where to locate their industries, part of it is they look at the state as a whole, and they try to determine if that state is a progressive state. That is, if it's open to new ideas and new technologies. And if they see a state where things are going backwards, if they see a state that's committed to old, obsolete technologies, they're like, well, my business, which is cutting edge, which generates billions of dollars, but it's like disruptive, it changes the way we do things. How is my business going to fare in a state which can't even put up wind turbines? And they will stay away, and they will not locate in Ohio, even if we have good tax rates, and even if we try to give them other perks, because let's face it, a lot of other states can do that too. All the states are in a race to slash taxes for corporations. So there's nothing special about the idea of giving a company money, tax benefits, but there is something special about allowing a company to come in and be able to say that we are getting our power from wind. We are getting our power from solar. And so our company is not contributing to global warming. But the state legislature, if this House Bill 6 pretty much makes that impossible in the state of Ohio. And so CEOs are going to stay away. And we know this because they testified in the hearings and said they would stay away. So this is not only going to cost us the 100,000 jobs that the efficiency standards have created, that as people are insulating and as people are installing new, more efficient equipment, modern, up-to-date equipment, not only will it cost us those 100,000 jobs, but it'll cost us hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs in the future as the big corporations, and most of the biggest corporations have global warming policies. Most of them say, we want to stop contributing carbon, and they've got long-term plans. And if they can't get those plans in place in the state of Ohio, they will not come to the state of Ohio. So in a single stroke, the state legislature would eliminate 100,000 current good-paying jobs, many of them union, and it would prevent hundreds, thousands more jobs from coming into the state. And it's going to increase the electric rates for millions of Ohioans, especially those who aren't in First Energy service area. They say, and it's just, it's kind of the worst legislation imaginable. And I had to wonder when they did this. I thought there's three possibilities. One is that Householder knows he's got the votes, that he's gotten commitments, he's put the hammer down, as they say, that he knows that this is going to pass. And so he could do whatever he wants. And so he just got rid of all the stuff that he tossed in there to gain some support from other people. So that's the first possibility. The second possibility is he knows it has no chance. He knows that this is not going to pass. And so what he's just doing is giving First Energy everything it could possibly want, so that even if he fails, he can say to his biggest donor, or his donor, I don't know if it's the biggest donor, but one of his largest donors, look, I tried. I did everything I could to get this through, and I couldn't do it. So please keep giving me money. Or the third possibility is that there's going to be a last-minute good cop, bad cop thing where all the ancillary stuff, all the these horrible things that they've just added get removed, but the base of it remains. So they'll say, okay, we'll put the efficiency standards back in. We will go ahead and put that battery storage thing back in, but you've got to give us the bailout. And that is, to me, that seems like the most likely explanation for what's going on here, is that they're saying they're doing the good cop, bad cop thing because the Democrats' alternative bill has all the good stuff, but it still gives the bailout to Davis-Besse. And so this is what I think they're attempting to do. What do you think? 866-240-1065. We've gotten kind of far from the garden here. We wandered back into HB6 territory, but I'm willing to go back into the garden for a little bit. We've got still a couple minutes, time for pretty much one call at 866-240-1065, and love to hear from you. One thing that I did want to say about nuclear power, and this also ties back in with the global warming, is that a lot of people don't know that water vapor is actually a greenhouse gas. That now it's, of course, a natural part of the system, the water cycle that we all know about, but water vapor in the air is actually twice as potent as carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas. So while they say that nuclear power doesn't put carbon in the air, which is arguable, and we've argued about that in the past, One thing that you can't argue about is that it does put water vapor in the air. I actually drove out to Davis-Besse this past weekend and took a look at it. And there's the smokes, there's the cooling tower, and it's putting, clouds and clouds of water vapor into the air every minute of every day that the plant is running. And the thing is that water vapor it's putting in the air is twice as potent as a greenhouse gas as carbon dioxide. So imagine that's a coal power plant smokestack, and then double it. Because the thing about global warming, and one of the places where even the atmospheric scientists are willing to admit, yeah, there's a positive feedback loop going here, is the evaporation of water. So the water gets into the air and warms the atmosphere because it traps heat. And then that warming causes more water to evaporate, and that extra added water adds more heat. And so what we end up with is an atmosphere that's super saturated with water, and that leads to what we've got today, which is we have predictions of thunderstorms for the next 5 days in a row. We have incredible record floods all over the Midwest, and those are predicted to get worse during this next week. We have fields where farmers cannot plant their crops because there's been too much rain. And that is a consequence of having too much moisture in the atmosphere, and that's a direct result and a direct cause of global warming. It's both a result and a cause. That's what a positive feedback loop is. So rather than actually trying to fix the problem, the Republicans controlling the state legislature are saying we've got to stick to the old things. We've got to keep doing things the way we've been doing it for the past 100 years. And that, unfortunately, would not lead to a green future. That unfortunately would guarantee a no future for this society, for this culture. And certainly we would not have been the first culture to have wiped out our own resources and so led to our own collapse. In fact, almost every human culture that's developed has done that. But we should not do it, and we do not have to do it. We know more than any previous human culture. We have more science at our disposal. We have satellites that are measuring the amount of water vapor in the air. The Incas did not have that. The Mayans did not have that. We do. And so we can measure what's happening, and we can explain what's happening, and we understand what's happening. And so all that has to happen for a green future is that understanding has to be translated into action. And that action can be as small as going out and gardening. It can be as tiny as going out and growing some of your own food. Or it can be as large as creating programs that have put wind turbines all over the country and provide us with the amount of electricity that potentially wind farms could, which is we could get all our power from wind and solar, especially now that we have battery storage. And as we heard in last week's show, especially if we add hydrogen into that equation and fuel cells, which are so much more efficient, we can do all these things. We can create the green future, but we can't do it if our laws are being made by people who insist on sticking to old, obsolete technologies. And so, as I said, please give your legislators a call. And so we've made it through the show. It's the last minute. I want to thank you for listening. Thank you so much. And if you'd like to keep this show on the air, please go to patreon.com. That's patreon.com. Search for a Green Future and sign up to make a small donation every month. We'd really appreciate it. This is Joe DeMar for a Green Future, signing off.